I'm live again. Laura tried to call me. Let's see if it works this time. Anyways, a lot has happened in the last 2 weeks. So I'm looking forward to chatting with her and getting her perspective on, things that are happening in California with the fires and the air quality and everything that's going on there. So let's see if we're able to get her to join. Hello.
Hello.
I
Okay,
swear
let's see.
nothing else is going to happen during this call today.
Listen, well, we're way ahead of the game. It's only 6:02.
Woohoo!
Yeah. It's,
So,
oh boy.
how have you been? How are things in Oakland? Is the air improving at all?
Yeah, it is. I've been out. I think that there are some things I'm sensitive about, and I'm not that sensitive about this. I know other people that it
Hmm.
affects more.
Hmm.
Um, but a lot of people have been out, and the sky looks clearer and things like that. I do I did have a friend had a friend whose house is gone,
Oh,
and I
wow.
had another friend from Nevada County, who had to evacuate with her two kids.
Hmm.
um, and she didn't know for a while whether her 24 chickens and two goats in Nevada County were
Hmm.
okay, not to mention her house, and they were. So she got back, but
Good.
it's just it's so incredible.
It's
Whew.
crazy. I was just thinking since the last time we talked, it's been just like a whirlwind of news and different events that are happening in our state and the country. And it's just like, wow.
This whole year has been incredible on so many fronts. It's just 2020, and we still don't know what what the sum total of the year is going to be. It's only August, and we've got November coming up. So, and we don't know when the end of the pandemic will be. I mean, it's just incredible. Ay, ay, ay.
Ay, ay, ay. So I kind of wanted to get your perspective on that. We didn't really have a chance to talk about that, but how do you feel about the pandemic? Do you feel like there's a big power grab going on? Like it's
Oh,
more than just a health crisis?
well, I do believe it's a health crisis. And I do believe that, like for me and for a lot of people, it's not, for a lot of people, it's a major big deal to do a sheltering in place. But for some of us, it's not. So to the extent that we can just not do our usual things, I say, why not? You know, um, I know that there's some question about whether or not people are saying that it's bigger than it is. I think it's pretty big. Um, and, I don't think, well, what have they said? Is it approaching 200,000 deaths in the United States?
That's what
And
I
I
heard.
don't, I don't think that they could be faking those numbers that much. And I remember I was really struck when I first heard the figure 50,000, because that was always a number that I heard were the number of American deaths in
Mm,
Vietnam, the Vietnam War. And
right.
of course, that's totally discounting the hundreds of thousands, probably millions, and it's significant that I don't know of Southeast Asian lives that were
Oh,
lost
wow.
during the Vietnam War. But I do remember
Hmm.
that 50,000 Americans, and this is four times that, and it's been under a year, uh, and so the main thing that I think is that it shows how much we need Medicare for all, improved Medicare for all, and to be having the great hope of November 2020 being not in favor of it, along with the other guy who is absolutely not in favor of it. They're totally, I mean, Trump even wants our healthcare to be even worse than it is.
Mm,
Obamacare is better than it was, which still makes us of the 30 wealthy industrialized countries that they keep track of CD, which is like the Office of Economic Cooperative,
hmm,
something. It's the wealthiest countries, and the UN keeps track of those. It's
right.
still the worst healthcare. And it's the most
Uh,
expensive by a lot, and the results are mediocre. And the coverage
absolutely.
was horrible and is now even worse because people have lost their jobs.
That would be me. I applied for Medi-Cal thinking I just lost my job and I lost my health care. Maybe they'll cut me some slack. Nope, I'm too rich and I make
Yeah,
this much.
yeah, right. But you have some money behind you or something, and
Yeah,
it's like it's still that
yes.
it's so. I mean, I think that the universal. I'm hoping that I three things right off the bat. I'm hoping show us the same. Let me write them down because otherwise I'll forget them. And that is thinking back to the days when legalizing marijuana, legalizing cannabis seemed like that wasn't going to happen anytime soon,
Mm-hmm.
and legalizing and having marriage equality, legalizing gay marriage and all marriage among, people who want to make a commitment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Even though that seems like, why should that be a big problem and why should that be a government decision anyway? Still, it didn't seem like that was going to happen. And they did. I'm hoping that three things at least would be, well, let's add four. Okay, Medicare for all, although since we don't have any of the two major candidates are in favor of it,
Mm.
we might have to put that aside for the moment. But universal basic income. I mean,
Yep.
Andrew Yang brought that up during those dozen Democratic candidates, of which the worst one is now the nominee. But he brought that up and really focused on it, and brought it into the public awareness, universal basic income, so that
Yep.
people can live, and it's doable given the inequality of wealth. Just reduce that inequality of wealth, and then people from young people to up to where people who aren't on social security, like I've got a universal basic income actually now.
Nice.
It's called social security, and I can live on it. I live not extravagantly, but I can live very well.
Great.
um, and that's the thing, that even if it's $1,000 or $1,200 or whatever it is, with Medicare for all, if you've got those basics, then we have more art. We have more where people will take jobs, that we have more art and we have more heart, where people can take jobs that they want to, not just because they need to make a lot of money to pay back their student debts,
Mm-hmm.
but that they're put here on this earth to do, that they have the gift that they have to give, they can give if their basics are covered. So universal basic income and public banking, which is moving along. Stop having the Wall Street banks and the bankers in charge of our economy and our lives, and have public banks, so that our cities and states and our whole country don't get squeezed by those banks, because we use our own capital, the public capital, for the public good. And reparations.
I was
I
just
mean,
thinking that. I was just thinking that while watching the convention. They're like, we're going to solve, racial disparity. We're going to, what do you call it? Equality for all, equal pay for women. But then they kind of scratched the surface of how they were going to solve some of those issues. But I'm wondering what your thoughts are on those issues.
well, Biden's not going to go there. I mean, Biden was one of the people that has, I don't know chapter and verse about his criminal justice background, but it's not good. And
Right.
neither is Kamala Harris's.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're not, and if they're going to ramp up the police, which Biden, has already done, um, in his prior, I still can't figure out how they resurrected that guy, but and they didn't completely. Actually, it's a little bit under, not quite a successful uh, bringing him back, but reparations. See, to me, it is a question of follow the money. And reparations are certainly due. I remember some people saying, "Oh, what's reparations? Why are people still complaining about things that happened 150 years ago?" Now,
Yeah.
that was a while ago that somebody said that, and I don't think people are as ignorant now about the fact that that stuff is happening now. When you have a
Yes.
family member that's picked up, put in jail, put in prison, even just accused and fined and all of that stuff. If you have that in your family to expect or not is a huge difference.
Yes.
Give reparations because of that, because of the damage that's done to that, by that, to the whole family. Yeah, so reparations, universal basic income,
Yeah.
public banking, Medicare for all. If we had those things, and we're definitely a wealthy enough country to have it, and while we've got it, these are free higher education. Boy,
We have a lot of work to do, don't we?
we do, and especially, I mean, even if Trump gets elected, oh my God, and if Biden gets elected, and people start thinking he's going to take care of anything, it's just we've got another thing coming. We've got to be like in his face more than he. It's hard though because people want to think that the Democratic Party will do some of what it says. The only promise I remember Obama, who has been canonized, if you
Mm-hmm.
looked at his record and called him Bush, people would remember him very differently.
Mm-hmm.
But he is, I think he's a nice guy. He's got a nice
Absolutely.
family.
Yes.
He's eloquent. He's intelligent. He's attractive, but his policies were really bad. And I prefer good policies from a president than all that other stuff. I'll go to the movies for that other stuff. Um,
Absolutely.
but but even with him, like he started out, make me do it. FDR supposedly, I guess he did say, great idea, now make me do it, meaning go to the streets, put a lot of pressure on him. Of course, FDR had the Communist Party and the Socialist Party and a growing union movement, and they were organized to make him do it. What Obama did when people tried to make him do it,
Mm-hmm.
like the Occupy movement, that was
Yes.
3 years into his 8-year presidency, Occupy was trying to make him do it. And the Democratic mayors across the country, with the backing of the Democratic administration in Washington, shut it down brutally. I mean, in Oakland, you remember what happened in
Yes.
Oakland, the wee hours
Mm-hmm.
of the morning.
It was a little bit crazy back then. And like you said, it wasn't during Bush and it wasn't now. It was during the Obama presidency. And I remember being physically at the station and people calling in and filling us in as to what was going on the ground before
Right.
Instagram. Uh,
Before Instagram, yeah.
yeah.
Right. The old-fashioned
So
cell phones. Yeah.
different time, but a lot of the things that we're experiencing now were happening back then, and we just, me for instance, maybe wasn't paying as close attention as I should have been. But there were people around me at the station, people that I knew that were fully aware of everything that was, taking place. And even with job creation and things seemed to be going well during those 8 years. I mean, it depends who you talk to, right?
Yeah, inequality grew. Inequality did not get reduced. I don't have a graph in front of me, but when we get off the phone, I'll look one up. But inequality did not get reduced. And the military bases, the 800 plus military bases, didn't close down. Guantanamo didn't close down. Things that took a hit were more deportations than any prior president, and drones. It was right at the beginning. There was a window where I was going to say, oh, these terrible things that have been happening with the drones and the taxes, they're going in the wrong direction, and the deportations and all of that stuff. Bush is really terrible. And they say, Bush isn't president. I said, oh, did I say Bush? I meant Obama.
That's embarrassing.
Yeah. Yeah. And everybody expected so much, and, and want to forget that it wasn't delivered. So here we are. And you're in Arizona still?
I'm still in Arizona, but I'm planning on going back to California. And then apparently there's 300 plus fires there right now.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a little bit nerve-wracking, because I remember 2 years ago being in San Francisco with a black sky, thinking, this isn't that terrible.
Yeah.
And then by the end of it, I was like, I can't breathe. Like literally
Right.
can't breathe. So it's just multiple things happening, right? The health crisis, the economic crisis, and then the climate crisis on top of all of it.
Yeah, and the Black Lives Matter, the criminal. Yeah, I think you said that, justice. It's incredible. It really is. Oh, did I tell you? I did a Facebook post about this, but I usually am very bad at predicting things, who's going to win in politics, because I let my optimism or my wishes get the better of me. Mm-hmm. But in June 2019, I looked at the field. So this was over a year ago. Right. And I was trying to find somebody. I said, okay, I want to make a bet. I'll bet it'll be Biden Harris. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't get any of my super political folks to make a bet one way or the other. But finally, a friend of mine said, okay, I'll bet you a nickel. So I'm a nickel richer. but in between, honestly, I thought, I know, look, there was Bernie Sanders, there was Elizabeth Warren. Those two were the best known ones, but Andrew Yang, as we talked about the universal basic income, had his ideas. Absolutely. Marianne Williamson gave a really strong a strong speech on a lot of things, but also on reparations, Yes. And a whole lot of other people. And then you have you just keep going down. And then you got Biden.
At the bottom.
Yeah, at the bottom. And shortly after I made this bet, this mm-hmm. nickel bet, then it was after that Kamala Harris started attacking Joe Biden. And then I thought, I had to think about that for a minute. I thought, what does this do to my nickel bet? And then I thought, nope, that could work. Because what it'll do, because people are so into, we collectively, at least the Electoral College in 2016 elected a reality show star.
Jeez.
We Trump, and so it's like the theater, so it's like people go for the theater. And so so it's great theater that Kamala Harris came out so strongly in her prosecutorial mode, attacking Joe Biden with the idea, undoubtedly, in the back of her head, in the back of the other people's heads who were doing everything they could to not have Elizabeth Warren nor Bernie Sanders, that
Yeah.
that was saying that, oh, this shows that he's got guts, he's got courage, he can stand up to whatever, and if he's with her, then that balances out his, um, balances him out with somebody who supposedly is more radical or progressive or something, which isn't true at all. But
Mm-mm.
but even before she did that, that wasn't a factor in my initial bet, but it was just the demographics. It was that he's old, she's young, he's white, she's black, he's East Coast, she's West Coast. She's there. One other thing: black, white, young, old, East Coast, West Coast. Uh,
That covers it.
yeah, that. So perfect. So she's perfect. And so many people are saying, oh yeah, with that vice presidential pick, he's a lot stronger. Okay, okay,
Okay.
okay.
I don't know about that. I feel like there's a lot of people in our boat that really feel like we were given the finger. And
Yes.
you know what I mean? And watching the convention, it was very, I've always kind of been with the Democrat Party, not always. I've been with the Green Party in some instances, and then I've been with the Democrats and others. And it just feels like one dog and pony show. And yeah, it's great to have an African American slash Indian female vice president. Like I'm happy for her. It was definitely an emotional moment. But I really think that the issues that they should be focusing on were everything's just very superficial right now. And I feel like that's not really solving the problem. It's not really considering why did Trump get elected. It's not taking into consideration everything that led up to that. So that's kind of my feeling, my gut feeling.
Yeah, and the environment doesn't even exist. The whole environmental huge crisis that we're in, like, barely exists. And honestly, I'd love to hear more about your reactions to the Democratic convention, because I for my energy, I can't watch it.
Really.
When I try, it just takes the energy that I have to use toward working for a better world. This is just speaking for myself. I can't do that. I have to do something that helps, that feeds my energy. But I did watch. I think it was about 90 seconds, or it might have been closer to 2 minutes, because I decided I would watch AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and see what
Hmm.
she had to say. And I might over time watch some of the other clips and stuff like that. But tell us what your impressions were.
I
What did
think
they
that
talk about?
the speeches, obviously the main speakers were the highlights. Michelle Obama, Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders. I kind of wanted Bernie to stick it to everyone, but he didn't. He
Yeah,
couldn't
he's
do
not
that.
gonna.
Elizabeth Warren. Um, I think those were some of the highlights for me. I was never a fan of Joe Biden. I was never really into Kamala Harris, but I did watch it. But I could definitely see, like, even though Bernie and Elizabeth and Andrew were quote unquote a part of that conversation, they really weren't. They really weren't. I feel like Andrew's speech didn't really talk about anything in his platform. Like maybe they didn't allow him to really get into it. Even AOC's speech was kind of short. Like she didn't really,
Yeah, it's definitely short.
like a
Yeah.
lot of people are saying she's kind of been pushed more to the center. Like she wanted to de-seat Nancy Pelosi. She really wanted to, you know, follow up on her progressive stance that she had initially. But now it's like those same people that you thought were really going to shake things up are now kind of I guess, quote unquote, falling in line.
Yeah.
Um, but I still felt like there was hope with Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, even though maybe there really is no hope. If they stick with the Democrat Party, maybe there is no hope. Maybe we need to, consider some of the alternatives, like the Green Party, like, I listened to your panel for the People's Assembly last week, and
Right.
there's so many other parties out there. There's so much out there. It's just people are so we're so fine-tuned and pushed into, right versus left and Democrat and Republican, and there's really so many choices out there. Um, so I don't know. I don't know if other people are going to be disillusioned again. I don't know if they're just going to fall in line. Um, I kind
Yeah.
of know people that are on all sides of that. So that's kind of my takeaway. It's more, I wish I could feel like, yeah, let's stick it to Donald Trump, like let's just get through this. But it's like, are we really going to do that when we cast our vote? Or is it really going to change things? Or are we just going back to the way things were before Donald Trump? That I definitely don't want.
Which is a slower, I mean, he put his foot on the accelerator of the destruction, of the bad stuff, except that he didn't actually do any more ramping. Well, it's difficult. He didn't start any new wars, which, every 4 years, usually they start some new wars, yeah, it's,
One good thing.
yeah, which is amazing,
Mm,
because usually every 4 years there's, they start out with some new wars, except that what they're doing now is
hmm.
economic sanction wars, which kills people. And that
True.
kills people, whether it's Yemen or Venezuela, Cuba, Palestine, you know. Um, Another thing on my, back to my nickel bet, that I started honestly thinking Bernie Sanders was making so much headway last fall and then leading up to Super Tuesday in March, where he did win California, but he did not. And he got the most. And then I can't remember. Do you remember who got the second most? Was it Warren or was it
I think it was Biden,
Elizabeth
then
Warren?
Warren.
Yeah, like
That's what I remember.
Bernie and then Warren. And then, yeah, I think so too. And so California went heavily, stayed the course, but all those other states flipped to Biden. And then all these other Democratic Party candidates that you've listed immediately endorsed Biden, Biden, Biden,
Mm,
Biden. And, um, and Bernie was done. And then
yeah.
Bernie endorsed Biden, and and
It's too hard. We need
yeah,
to think of some
because
alternatives.
the thing that I pressure, what's lacking is pressure. FDR had pressure, but also I think we talked about this a little bit last time. What
Mm,
got us out of the depression was, I mean, he did a lot of policies, a lot of, like public works, and had art in there, and youth, conservation corps, did, covered a full range of what governments should do in good ways. But what they say really that got the United States out of the depression was World War II, where
yeah.
there was this big push toward where everybody was like, okay, everybody, we've got to do it. I mean, they even went so far as to give women jobs that had been traditionally male jobs. Oh my God, they even did that. And that was in the, in the 40s, and we haven't gotten back to it yet,
Mm,
to I mean, the minute that the war ended, those women were out of those jobs.
back in
But
home.
but yes, but everything was like uh, this is an emergency. Everything, we've got to do everything. We've got to convert everything we can into, building airplanes and weapons and, all of that. And so then the economy got jump started by the war. And even though there were the conservation corps, there wasn't a lot of dams were built and stuff like that. There wasn't as much, there wasn't the emphasis on the environment. The environment didn't look as if we could have, we hadn't done as much damage to the environment. Right. Also, the effect of chemicals on the environment came in mostly after the war, because that's when the big push on the chemical industry came about. Pesticides came about after the war, as well as a whole bunch of other chemicals and chemical pollution. So he didn't focus the environment wasn't as much of a problem. Yeah. Peace wasn't something that we were going to go for, other than, the war to end all wars, that we're just doing this war so that we can have peace. Everybody talks about peace, and the way you do it is you have a war. And on the pressure side, that's the thing that was there and isn't here now in terms of organized. They had, as I mentioned before, from one end to the other, Communist Party. And Russia had the Russian Revolution, just a couple decades before that, right. 2 decades before that. And so there were the communists and the socialists, and they were organized, and they had parties, and they had meetings, and there were the unions, and they were organized, and they had, all of that. And they hadn't been shut down yet, but bit by bit, they were shut down, and the safeguards about the finances were put aside with pretty much the end of Glass-Steagall at the end of Bill Clinton in 1999, just before he left office, put the final nail in the coffin, which led up to, less than 10 years later, that global meltdown in 2008. So
I wanted to ask you, I don't know if we talked about this last time, or if you had a chance to watch the antitrust hearings that happened about 2 or 3 weeks ago. But do you have any thoughts on revamping the antitrust laws and how it might pertain to I guess they call them the cyber barons now, the tech barons?
Yeah, well, monopolies are a great way to concentrate power and wealth. And whether it's technology or broadcast media or the communications, the fewer and fewer family farms and more agribusiness, the huge, giant mega corporations that do all kinds of things, including weapons and things like that. The trusts, the antitrust laws were needed, and they're needed again. I mean, look at I know you work in independent media. The corporate media, what is it? 6 companies that own huge 90% of everything, including your community newspaper, your community radio station,
Even those are going under during the pandemic, I heard.
Yeah. Newspapers have been having a hard time for a long time because, there's the internet. And so now you've got the tech trusts. Yeah. So now you've got technology. You talk about that. You watched the trusts.
It was interesting. I mean, I felt again like it was more like finger pointing, like, look at what you did. Amazon took away this family's income. They saw that they were really making, huge profits. I mean, how huge can they be? They're just one vendor on a huge platform called Amazon, but because they were doing so well, they started making it harder and harder for them to make money, and then eventually they weren't able to make any profit. So they focused on a lot of small cases that pertain to individuals, or, for instance, Google colluding or working with China, and kind of going around the laws and not really letting the U.S. conduct oversight, and not really, staying in line with what they're supposed to be staying in line with. And then Facebook was kind of acting like, oh, we're not the biggest bully on the block anymore. TikTok is. So there was just, there was some interesting, back and forth, but all in all, I'm wondering if anything will actually be done, or if anything will actually be changed or revitalized because of what's going on. But I mean, I guess I enjoyed watching it.
Yeah, really. Right.
It's
Well,
like,
yeah, I mean,
our the whole world has changed. I mean, even in the past 10 years, it's just like, my God, everything is online. Like, I remember at least doing some things not on my phone or not on a computer, but now everything is so manipulated and controlled to the point where you have to go through Amazon, or you have to go through Google, or you have to go through Instagram. Like, how else are you going to make an income or have your voice be heard? You know what I mean?
right. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I want to, so that I don't forget this, there
yes.
is something in California that is hopeful, and I'm sure I've mentioned this a zillion times, but, and that is Proposition 15, the name of which is Schools and Communities First. And what needs to happen is what Prop 15 will help move forward. And that is, the super rich need to be taxed. And they need to be taxed by the billionaires need to be taxed, and their corporations need to be taxed. And that is one of the reasons why they are so strong, is that, for one thing, they've put a whole lot of their headquarters in other countries, if not the Cayman Islands or Ireland or someplace else.
Switzerland.
They've moved it all around. But they still, yes, but they still have some property. Even Trump has property in California. And what the corporations and the billionaires have not paid their fair share in taxes. And so some key facts are that what happened, it was in 1978 that Prop 13 passed. And the main thing that was ever said about that is help old people stay in their homes so that they don't lose their homes because of the rising property taxes, because of their homes' increased market value, whereas they just want to live there. Okay, so flatten the property tax so that old people don't lose their homes. But they flattened property tax for residents and for commercial and corporate properties. And so at the time, that's what started this whole thing in process. That's one thing. Now, the second thing is that at that time, which was 40 years ago, roughly half of the property taxes that came in California came from residences. And roughly half of it came from commercial corporate. Now, 72% from residents and 28% from corporate commercial. And that's because the only time the property gets reassessed is at the point of sale. And between the fact that corporations don't sell, they don't die, for one thing, and they don't sell. And when they sell, there are all sorts of loopholes where if somebody doesn't buy more than 50% and stuff like that, all these loopholes have made it to where in Disneyland, they're paying like Disneyland's rate on the same size property is 1/7 of a house that's in the neighborhood. You know, the house is paying 7 times as high a rate on their property tax, an average home, compared to Disneyland. And then there's Chevron, the biggest corporation in the state. And then there's Trump properties, and then there's, you know, all of that. So that's a second thing. And a third thing that I would just point out is that a whole lot of the organizers, and I just think this is wonderful, weren't even born when Prop 13 were passed, but they figured it out. Hello, I know.
I'm a little late to the game, but here I am.
Yeah, but a whole lot of people your age and younger and older, and a whole lot of old people too, but are working on this thing. But the young people understand that there's this organization called Evolve. And if you want to find out more about this whole Prop 15 thing, evolve-ca. So evolve-ca.org. They started out, I think they may have started out with one of two things. And one of them was the real millionaire's tax before Jerry Brown watered it down. There was the real millionaire's tax, and Jerry Brown made it worse. But it was still, just like Obamacare, is better than it used to be. It's still bad. So the millionaire's tax would have been better, but it was still better than nothing, even after Jerry Brown did his magic with it. And yes, I am being sarcastic. But then this Evolve organization, either before or after, they zeroed in on Medicare for all. Now, California has super majority Democrats. Every single, in both houses of the legislature, they can pass anything they want. And they have all of the offices of the 7 statewide offices, which are from governor to lieutenant governor, controller, treasurer, secretary of state, attorney general, the insurance commissioner, everyone. So Democrats all over the place. Why don't we have Medicare for all in California?
Right.
Why? I do not know the answer to that, other than the fact that they have no intention of doing it, because there's no Republican pressure or power to go against it. If the Democratic Party establishment in California wanted to do in the nation state of California, nobody can say it's too small an entity to do it. We're the 5th or 6th largest economy in the world. And so back to Evolve-ca, they were working on the millionaire's tax, and they were working on Medicare for all. And then they went, you know what the real problem, you know what happened to California? Prop 13 in 1978. Let's work on that. And they started working on that years ago, at least 3, 4, 5 years ago, and gathered petitions. It has to be a petition because it has to be an initiative, a proposition, because that's how it got in. So they gathered it, and then the big money starts taking pot shots at it. And so they gathered a million more signatures to make it better, to make it more bulletproof by the big money. In other words, to help small businesses more, and to make the exemptions, like $3 million for the businesses, and to make it so that it was clearly going toward the biggest ones. So that's a hopeful thing. I don't know what. I know they're already telling lies. Prop 15 does not affect residential at all, which for your typical voter, like they say, the most likely people to vote, unfortunately for us, older, whiter, and richer. So golly, I wish everybody that isn't older, whiter, richer would just say, I'll show you, I'm going to vote.
I
Oh, you
know.
have no idea how much I wish that would happen. You know,
And that's kind of what I'm thinking is maybe I should just kind of continue what I did for Elizabeth Warren's campaign. Obviously, I'm not going to be campaigning for her, but I can reach out to people in the swing states and make sure they're registered.
yeah,
I'm not going to tell people who to vote for, but at least if they're registered, then there's a chance in hell that they'll vote.
yeah. And I wish they had somebody more inspiring to vote for. And in the non-swing states like California, I will give my pitch. Um, Hillary Clinton in 2016 got 62% to Trump's 32%. That's huge. And
Absolutely.
it's 4 million votes.
Hmm.
If the Green Party and the people who are running they're in favor of all of these things we've been talking about. But the two-party system has done a stranglehold on the system and told everybody that you must vote Democrat or Republican. Do you know, the Democrats don't care if they'd rather you voted Republican than Green. And how do we
Oh,
know that?
God.
Because they didn't back Bernie Sanders when he was going gangbusters in 2016, and they stopped him again in 2020. That's how you know.
Yeah.
Uh, that's how you know they preferred Trump to Bernie Sanders,
Oh,
because Trump was and I'm talking Democratic Party establishment, the
mm-hmm.
leaders, the movers and shakers, the ones that
The
pull
puppet masters.
the puppet masters. Because if they would have been looking at the polls and they would have gone, whoa, wait a minute, we definitely want to beat Trump. The best shot that we have is Bernie Sanders. Let's go with Bernie Sanders. But no, they definitely needed to beat Bernie Sanders. Just so
Oh
they
my
did.
God.
And
Pain.
they definitely need to beat the Green Party. Do you know, if they really
Mm.
wanted those things, they wouldn't be, oh boy. I've got to tell the story about 2003. Matt
Tell me.
Gonzalez was running Matt Gonzalez was running for mayor as a Green Party candidate in 2003 against Gavin Newsom.
Oh,
So
I
they're
remember
both
him.
running for mayor. And Matt Gonzalez got something like, it was 48% of the vote in
Wow.
a hugely Democratic Party city, which
Yeah.
means a whole lot of Democrats voted for him. And Gavin Newsom was a business side, got the business vote, and would not have won if he hadn't gotten all this. This ended up being a runoff, so it was two candidates. Earlier they had more candidates in the field, but this was a runoff. So you had a choice of either Matt Gonzalez or Gavin Newsom. So
Huh.
what Gavin Newsom gathered was most, probably not all, the Republicans, because there are some what call themselves principled Republicans who actually have principles other than grabbing everything you can,
Gotcha.
but and some of those principles are to take responsibility for yourself, not to depend on the state to take responsibility for you. That's a big one. Not to have taxes so high that it hurts people. Uh, you know, uh, Principled Republican would not be anti-environmental laws. They would be in favor of environmental laws. And there are Republicans that definitely believe that the environment needs our help, not our destruction. But anyway, the business oriented grab as much as you can, Republicans voted for Gavin Newsom. Now, who
Oh,
came to
wow.
town to fight the possibility of the Green winning mayor? So think back, it's 2003.
Wow.
And who came to town? Clinton, Bill Clinton, Al
He did.
Gore,
They
and not
didn't.
only the former, at that point they were it was 2000 is when Bush was elected by the
The
Supreme
Supreme
Court.
Court.
Yeah.
That's
And so
right.
he was president. But Bill Clinton and Al Gore, yes, Al Gore of An Inconvenient Truth, came to town, but not only them, but Jesse Jackson. So the three
Huh.
of them came to town to back up their guy, Gavin Newsom, against what would be a horror of a Green Party mayor being
Wow.
elected. But you would think that if they were for these things of Medicare for all, of a great
Mm.
environment, of good, of strong unions, they take plenty of union money. If they were in favor of strong unions, if they were in favor of the post office, Trump once again did not start the post office's problems. Those have been going for a long, long time, and it was through the Obama years that they've been having trouble as well.
Yep.
And so they would want the Green Party to be a pressure, make me do it. They would want the Green Party to be strong because we'll be there, and we don't back away from those things because we're not taking anybody's money. We're not taking billionaires and corporations' money. We're strictly funded by individuals, which is what Bernie Sanders was doing, and other people. But what the Green Party, that's been since 1992. That's what we've done. So that's another way of sort of leading the way. But in California, and if people get nervous, oh, I don't know, I really don't want Trump to win. What if Trump wins California? If Trump wins California, he's got the whole, then he's won every state in the country, and there's nothing you can do about it. And that's not going to happen. But look at the polls. California voters, look at the poll, before you vote, whether it's in advance or not. And if the polls are 62 to 32 or 55 to 45 or whatever, then cast your vote for pressure. Make your vote count. Vote if you agree with wanting a good environment and wanting things like Medicare for all and wanting things like fairly taxing the rich and wanting things like justice leading to reparations and not wanting a militarized police force, wanting community policing, community security, then vote green. Otherwise, there's no pressure. Voting in California for the Democratic Party nominee, even though you weren't crazy about that nominee, is like by definition a wasted vote. It does nothing. All it does is acquiesce to the slide toward, the Democratic parties have been trying to kiss up to the right wing for a long, long time. They don't try to kiss up to the left wing. They're kissing up to the right wing because there's no pressure. If everybody says, well, I'll vote for the Democrats no matter what, then why should they pay attention to us?
And I've been hearing a lot of that from people who have been Democrats for forever. Even people,
yeah.
Go ahead.
So then why? So I'm Biden, and you've got 5 people in your room, and one of them is giving me, 2 of them are giving me a whole bunch of money. You're going to give me your vote, and you're thinking about, you might, you're not sure which way you'll go, but let's say you're in a swing state. Let's say you're in California. Let's say they're in my room. I'm here in California. I'm voting green. And then I got these 2 people over there that are giving Biden a whole bunch of money. And I got 2 people over here, and they're Democrats. One of the Democrats is like, oh, gee, I'll vote Democrat for the rest of my life. I'm just a Democrat. Sorry, that's it. And then the other person is trying to think about what they're going to do. If Biden can look at both of them and say, well, if you're going to vote for me,
I don't
What
have
do,
to do anything.
what do I need to do for you? You know, like, what do I need? I'll look at, you know, like he said to a group of, he was speaking to a group of, or I can't remember the exact things, but I'll say it anyway. He said to somebody, if you're Black and you're not voting for me, then you don't understand, or something really insulting. It's like, then you don't understand the situation, something like that. This was a few months ago. It's like,
Whoa.
Biden, I don't think you understand, but he does understand. If he doesn't have to do anything, he won't do it. If he has to do
This,
something to get their money, you know, because they don't say, oh, well, you tried. They say, well, I think we'll give a little bit more to the other side this time and a little bit less to your side this time. You know, this time, who knows? I mean, they give money both sides, because you can buy, you know, both sides can buy you out. And especially when both sides agree on war and Wall Street and blaming the individuals and having young people. I'll tell you one thing that just drives me crazy. Generationally, so when I got out of school, I didn't have any debt. I had scholarships. I didn't have any money, but I didn't have money going in, and I could not have gone through if I had jobs as well as scholarships. But they were scholarships, they weren't loans. So
right,
that when I got out, I didn't have to pay anything back. And I'm not alone. A whole lot of people, even younger than me, that happened to. But now, what have we done? How can we possibly accept the fact that young people at age 21, 22 have debt?
right.
To
I
me, it's
had a small, I had a small loan, but it took me 10 years to pay it off because my generation graduated, when the recession hit. And it's
right.
just, I decided to work in, the tech industry of all things because of where we live in the Bay Area. And that
Yeah,
seemed like that's where the jobs were. But needless to say, job after job after job later, and then getting laid off more than
yeah,
once, I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm just going to
yeah,
work for myself and tough it out. But luckily, I paid off all my debt before the pandemic started. So I consider myself
yeah,
one of the lucky ones, but I can only imagine
yeah.
not having any debt to start out with.
Right. I know. Well, that was like, um, my husband and I were both, my ex-husband now, but still friends. My daughter did what she needed to do. She got some grants and she got some loans, and she went through in 4 years. So she kept her grants and kept, and she did well. And so then when the loans were supposed to be due in 6 months afterward, I decided I am not going to have worked so much in my life and have a child that's in debt when she leaves college. And so her father and I paid off her debts,
Oh,
but because she had done what she needed to do. Why should she have any debts? And a
yeah,
whole lot of people, anyway, but it isn't like that's the way that it should be happening. There should be, the tuition shouldn't have cost that much in the first place. We paid
exactly.
tuition, but it was doable. The tuition was so high, it was ridiculous. It'll either put the parents in debt or the kids in debt. Well, we've actually reached 7 o'clock, haven't we?
I was going to say we have about a minute remaining. I was wondering if you had any closing thoughts.
Oh, well, I should always something that one should do is say my website is myname.org, which is, to spell it out, is LAURAWELLS.org. And there are a bunch of Laura Wells's. I'm not the plus size model. I'm not the athlete. I'm not the journalist. I'm the
Green
Green Party,
Party.
Laura Wells.
Well, it was a pleasure to have a conversation with you where we didn't have any technological glitching,
No meltdowns.
no meltdowns.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for and good luck.
Thanks,
Go.
you too. Hopefully we'll talk soon and in real life.
Yes. Yes. I'll look
All
forward to
right.
that.
Have a good evening.
Okay.
Take
Bye
care.
bye.
Bye bye.
Yes. You too.